Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our very first Early Childhood Brooks Coffee Chat. My name is Amy Klaus, and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Brooks Publishing. And we're happy to have Lori Roggman and Mark Innocenti here with us today to talk about using Piccolo and HOVRS in virtual home visits. Before we get started, I wanted to go over just a few tips about watching the webinar. So, um, it probably is best to close any application that use any bandwidth or internet on your device just so you have a better listening experience. And if you have any audio issues, we encourage you to switch to phone call instead of the computer audio. That tends to work better. We're going to take questions at the end of the webinar, so please, as you're listening to the presentation, you can type those in the question panel, and that's near the bottom of your GoToWebinar panel. You can just type those in there. And if you want to minimize that GoToWebinar panel, just click that orange arrow and that'll shrink it so you can see more of your screen. And I wanted to point out that today's slide handouts are in the download section. So if you go to your handout section in the GoToWebinar panel, you can see the slides as well as a couple other resources that will be talked about during the presentation. So thank you again for joining us. And now I'd like to turn it over to Lori and Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, I'm Lori Roggman, and Mark Innocenti is here with me. And I think you can see our screen. I'm not sure.
Yes, we can.
Okay. We will be talking about using Piccolo and HOVRS in virtual home visiting. We're assuming you've at least heard of Piccolo and HOVRS and know kind of what they do. We'll give you a brief definition, but I wanted to start out by sort of imagining things that we can do from a distance when we are keeping a physical distance from the families that we're serving, but we still want to be connected. So one way is to use something like Zoom, just as an example. There are many other programs. I'll mention some others. If you use a full screen and gallery view, you can see the family, they can see you, and it's possible to record those visits so that a supervisor would be able to watch them, or so that a home visitor could watch the parent-child interaction and use the Piccolo measure. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But some families don't have access to internet. One other option is a cell phone, possibly with or without FaceTime, if they have something like FaceTime, where again, you can see each other and possibly record some of that. But even a cell phone that does not have a camera can be used to talk to parents and guide them through a playful interaction that a home visitor could listen to and use Piccolo and use it in that way. And it's not perfect, but it's better than not doing any parent-child observation and not providing any feedback. So there you go. You could also mail a package. Often what we're doing in these televisits in my work is we're helping parents identify materials that are in their home that they can use for interactions with their child. But sometimes parents might need some materials or printed information for them, translated information, for example, that might be mailed through the mail the old-fashioned way and followed up with a phone call. Again, using that, taking advantage of the audio, even if you don't have the visual. So just a quick overview. We generally recommend 2 full days of training for programs that really want to incorporate Piccolo or the home visit rating scales into their work. So this isn't training, but just to identify these measures. Piccolo is a parent-child interaction measure. Its purpose is to help home visitors see developmentally supportive parent-child interactions in ways that help them give positive feedback to families. The Piccolo measures parenting in these 4 domains: affection or warmth and positivity in interactions, responsiveness, encouragement, and teaching. And the Piccolo measure, a user's guide, and a DVD with practice videos are all available from Brooks at this website. If you just Google Brooks and Piccolo, you'll get there. The home visit rating scales measure the quality of the home visit practices and family engagement. So that includes relationship building, responsiveness to family strengths, facilitation of parent-child interaction, and collaboration with caregivers as partners. Those are the practices. And then also the engagement scales of caregiver-child interaction, caregiver engagement, and child engagement during the home visit. Both of these can be adapted with varying degree of accuracy, but they can be adapted to virtual home visits in any of those scenarios that I was describing on the last slide. So there are materials that we recommend for Piccolo. So often what we've been doing is guiding families to find some things they already have that they could use to play with their child. And so we've always included a picture book in our Piccolo work, but any kind of set of photographs from family pictures, photographs clipped out of junk mail, it doesn't really matter. But the idea is for a caregiver and child to be looking at something and talking about it together, like we would with a picture book. And we recommend picture books without words anyway, because then it's easier for parents who are nervous about reading from a book to interact with their child using a book. Some sort of toys for pretending. The teaching domain includes an item about pretending, but pretending also often includes a lot of items from the Piccolo about responding and encouraging the child. So we often include like a kitchen set or a picnic set or something like that that will be familiar to children, but just plastic cups and bowls and utensils, anything like that, or maybe not toys, but some recycling things that could be used to pretend to have a pretend picnic or something, or a doll and a blanket, something, toys that can be used for pretending. And then toys with parts to share, whatever it is, a puzzle, shape sorter, Legos, something like that. And then for a home visit rating scale observation, it doesn't matter what the activity is, just because the process of how the home visitor works with the caregiver and child to guide them through an activity or reflect on activities with the caregiver, that will show the home visitor's strengths in several of those practice areas, the relationship, responsiveness, facilitation, and collaboration areas. So you don't need any special materials. You may know that we recommend the ASQ also in combination with these tools, and that also requires some guidance to help parents identify materials, but there are lots of household materials that can be used to help parents do the ASQ at home. So 2 ways to observe Piccolo in virtual home visits, but I'm going to turn it over to Mark to talk about Piccolo, and then I'll come back and talk about the home visit rating scales.
Bouncing back and forth. So as Larry was saying, 2 major ways to observe Piccolo in virtual home visits. One is, as you can see, number 1, the easy way to do it is really just for you to be able, if the capability is there, for you to actually watch the parent and child interacting through whatever technology you're using. To actually watch them engaged in the interaction and kind of see how they're doing it, to let yourself kind of step back, just watch them in the process, then wait till afterwards. And depending on your capabilities, if you're an experienced HOVRS Piccolo user, you could talk about it on the spot. If you want some time, you could say, I'm going to look at this a little more, score it, come back at another time and talk with them on another home visit. The other way that really works is you could record the visit if you have that capability. For example, on Zoom is easy to record when you're observing. You could actually record the visit, the parent-child interaction as it's happening, and then take that later on. Especially, if you're newer to the use of the Piccolo or kind of still getting more comfortable with kind of the items in the Piccolo, it's a good way to kind of take it and say, I'm going to look at this, and the next time, when you're planning for your next visit, say next time I come back, we'll talk about this in a little more detail, and then potentially even being able to share examples of the parent-child interaction as well and talk through what happened. So there's a couple of different approaches like that. The other way to do it that can facilitate the process a little bit is to actually ask the family to send a video if they have that capability. So if they have a phone on their camera, they can record the parent-child interaction and just upload that to you where you could observe it. And then when you get to the home visit, you'd be ready to do it. We have colleagues in Spain who are using the Piccolo, and that's their preferred way to do it. They actually send camera equipment to the family to say record, and they send it all back again. It's a little cumbersome. It's possible. The postal service is still working during our pandemic time here. So it could be done that way, but it's easy just to kind of upload and do. So a couple of different ways, and what we're looking for is 5 to 10 minutes of parent-child interaction. So that's kind of what we're going for.
I want to add one thing in, and that is that someone had asked, well, what if you can't do either one of these things? What if the family doesn't have internet and they also don't have a camera that they could video record with? So they can't do this thing that you're saying. But a lot of what happens in these interactions, we can actually tell from the transcripts that we have what's happening. And so just by listening, if you go through some of the Piccolo items and you're familiar with the Piccolo, you can identify some of the items that you'll be able to hear. So like maybe you can't see if the caregiver is smiling at her baby, but maybe you can hear her laughing with her baby. And so you know she's smiling. You know there's a positive interaction. So you can be a little bit more flexible with some of that scoring to take into account, well, you can't hear it. I mean, you can't see it, but maybe you can hear it. And then many items include reference to something a caregiver might say. So you can give feedback on quite a bit of the interaction if all you can do is hear.
Next slide.
Got it.
Okay, takes a second to come up. And just so you know, don't get hung up about the materials that are being used by the family.
Mm-hmm.
We do recommend for a lot of what we do to say, just pick whatever materials you have in your house. And, you know, you want the parent to have a role in this. You want them to be able to pick things that their child is currently interested in,
Mm-hmm.
kind of encourage the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever they have is fine. And so don't worry too much about materials.
Right. If it's all cardboard boxes and toy cars, that's fine.
That's
whatever it is.
Whatever it might be. Once you have the video and you're able to look at it, if you've done the Piccolo, you kind of know how to go through the items and kind of look at how we rate the items and kind of talk about trying to find what the parents' strengths are, what they're doing well, and really highlight those. So coaching with the Piccolo really focuses on what does the parent already do, what are their strengths, and really kind of letting them know about what their strengths are and talking to them about their strengths, and then really kind of using that information to try and build it. And other times, when else can you use these strengths that you have? What other activities can you use them? So there's a lot of that goes on as part of your planning with the family, but the tool really lets you see what the parents are doing and what they do well, and you really want to build on that as you're doing it. So it's really this coaching tool to really kind of look at and kind of highlight what they're doing and encouraging them to get to do more of it. So we are doing the coaching thing. You know, you can use the full Piccolo if you're doing that as part of your regular practice. Programs do the full Piccolo at different times during the year. Every program varies a little bit. We also have what we call the 29 things, and the link you see on your screen right now is the link to what we call the 29 things. And the 29 things are essentially the items in the Piccolo, 29 items in the Piccolo, so 29 things. And kind of with the, if you're a more experienced Piccolo user, if you're comfortable with the tool, you can use the 29 things in short interchanges to really kind of let the parents know what they're doing well. We work with a number of programs who've done a lot of innovation with the Piccolo, who really kind of do regular parent-child interactions as part of every home visit. They do them with short little visits, and some of the programs record, some do not. But people take the 29 things and they turn around and they show the parent the 29 things right away, and they say, I saw you do these things, and they identify some of the things on the 29 things, and they use that to talk with the parent about their interaction with the child to try and get more interaction to facilitate better parent-child interaction. Really, you're talking about parent skills. You want to hit on what the parent did, why that's good for the child, and what the outcome of that is, how they develop. And really that process down below, observe, give feedback, inform and encourage, repeat. It's kind of the process that you do over and over again. With this, how is it used in a virtual home visit? It is a powerful facilitation tool, and we're really looking at using it with effective practices. You know, you are using it to build your relationship with the family, to better understand what their strengths are and what they do well, which ties right into responding to the family strengths. You know, we really encourage in our developmental parenting book, especially when you see those strengths, let parents know that you're seeing strengths. Tell them what those strengths are and what those strengths do for kids. People don't get that information enough. The Piccolo, all in and of itself, facilitates great positive interaction. It's a nice opportunity within the home visit to watch the parent and child play together, see what they're doing, give them feedback. It does 1 and 2 as well. And then once you have that information and how you can use it in other places, you're going to use the information to collaborate about planning what you're going to do when the family can do more of these behaviors, to kind of really expand what they're up to. And just so you know, our kind of when we give feedback, we really want to see you as the home visitor, you as the practitioner, really letting the parent being clear about what you observed. You know, this is what you saw. This is what the child did in response to what you did as a parent. This is what it does for the child's development. So really kind of putting those parts together to make it work. Sorry, he's bouncing us back and forth a little bit.
Sorry.
But less, you know, less emphasis on materials, more on parent-child interaction. Take it away.
Okay. I'll quickly adapt this to the home visit rating scales, but I'll start out by saying it's a parallel process. Anyone who's familiar with our work would expect that. But again, it gets a little bit more complicated because now a supervisor may want to be observing a virtual home visit. So again, number 1 is sort of like, okay, you can do this by internet, maybe by something like Zoom or another program, and you can see this, you can record it, or the supervisor could sit in live. As it says, I'm muted and off video, but I introduced myself, so now I'll just watch. Or the supervisor, number 2, might be able to watch this recorded online home visit later. Or the home visitor might, the supervisor might be able to listen in on a telephone home visit. And again, a lot of what is happening between the home visitor and caregiver, and even the home visitor, caregiver, and child during home visits is you can hear it. You can hear what people are saying. You can hear whether the child is engaged in this process often. So that's always another option. Again, the coaching is the same process: observing, giving feedback, giving information and encouragement to help increase that quality, and then repeating that. And again, this is another slide that looks very much the same, but we want the similar practices that are used in effective supervision related to relationship and responsiveness to strengths, facilitating skills and collaborating to set goals, and giving feedback. Less emphasis on curriculum and more on coaching. And that's they would be watching that previously recorded home visit together. These are parallel strategies supporting, facilitating, and planning that we want to see both when the home visitor is working with the family and when the supervisor is working with the home visitor. So we're giving away 3 free copies of Developmental Parenting. That's a resource. Or Brooks is, we're not. Brooks is. And if you want to get started with the home visit rating scales, the original version is in the appendix. Otherwise, you can contact us. You also, all of you, save 20% at brookspublishing.com using that coffee talk code, all one word, in caps, it looks like. And there will be more coffee chats and recommended reading. There's a COVID link at the Brooks website as well, so you'll easily find that. It pops up. And now we're open for questions. Woo!
Yes. Thank you, Lori and Mark. That was very helpful. And we have lots of good questions. So let's see. I just want to let everyone know. So the three copies of developmental pairing. So we're going to draw them randomly once we export the list of registrants. And so we will email the 3 lucky people who win, and then we will ship a copy from our warehouse. A couple other logistics. So the handouts that we talked about. So if you're in your GoToWebinar panel, there should be a handout section. So if you click that little triangle that's beside the handouts, it should drop down, and you should be able to see there are 5 PDFs. The 29 things handouts that Mark talked about are in there, as well as a copy of the slide handouts and a really great document with tips for using Piccolo and HOVRS during virtual visits. Let's see. A lot of thank yous for the webinar, and a lot of thanks for the helpful handouts I'm seeing. Lori, do you mind backing up to the slide that has the Coffee Talk code on it? I think it's Coffee Talk. That'll get you everyone a 20% discount. So I think it was maybe 2 or 3 slides back. So that would, yep. So Coffee Talk is everyone can jot down that code. My goodness. And everyone, the recording will be, everyone who registered will be getting an email tomorrow, and it'll have a link to the recording, and it will also be archived on the Brooks website. The thank yous are coming in so fast that I can't read all the questions. So, okay, back to the beginning. Lori, I think you talked about training in the very beginning, and someone's asking whether the May training that was canceled will be rescheduled. Can you hear me?
Yes. We don't have dates yet. We don't know when.
I'm sorry, I think we lost.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry, just for a minute, I think we might have lost audio.
Can you hear me?
We have some questions about, so,
yes.
Yes.
We will reschedule that.
Yes, I can, yes, yes. Okay. I have a question about, so when you're doing,
I think
this is, I think, when you're doing the mainly via audio. Yeah, I can see our videos. I think I'm going to turn off the video chat. I think that might, I'm going to turn off my webcam to see if that helps. Sometimes that takes up more
Yes, turn
internet.
off the slide. Or
Okay.
maybe I'll,
No, that should be okay.
I could go out.
Yes.
We could stop the slideshow.
Okay, I think we're synced up now. Yes. Yeah, that should help. There's a lot of people listening on the webinar, and we're really excited to have you join us. But sometimes, when lots of people join, the technology is strained a bit. So when if you are observing the Piccolo through audio only, what do you recommend when there's a lot of silence and the mom is generally not very verbal?
Well, that's something to notice. That's information that's helpful for home visitors to notice that. And sometimes when we're in person, we want to fill in that gap. So I think letting that be is kind of good practice. Televisiting in general is good practice for being better observers. But I think if I were a mother who wasn't very verbal and I was doing this by telephone, I would ask questions about, just sort of explain to me what you're doing now. And ask maybe, when you're explaining that, when you're describing what you're doing to me, is your child listening to you? Do you think your child is listening? And that's something, I mean, that kind of, just that simple behavior of describing what you're doing at the time you're interacting with a child is really good for children's language development. So that's a good thing just in and of itself, and gives the home visitor a little bit more information about the context. Yeah.
Great. Um, could you talk about some tips or ways to get parents to focus on parenting strengths during a crisis? This listener has a lot of families that are still on the lower level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Well, yeah, I think that when we have families that are struggling with basic needs, like they're anxious about survival. I mean, people are out of work, money's not coming in, they're not secure in their housing, they may not be secure in terms of being able to provide food for their family. That creates the conditions that are really actually very risky for children. If they're not getting that developmental support, and if they're experiencing, which they do, the stress that their parents are feeling, because especially young kids who that they're very, very good at picking up on that, and it affects them. We can help families be happier right now, and we can help them protect their children from experiencing all of this as trauma by helping them keep interacting with their children in positive ways regularly, however they're comfortable doing it. Not just, don't worry about curriculum, just worry about what makes families happy when they're interacting with each other, what they can do that would feel good, and helping that build that into their daily routines, because they need that now. The children need it now more than ever, and actually the parents need it now more than ever. Probably parenting is more important now than it was 6 months ago. For one thing, children are spending more time with their parents, but also there's a lot of heavy emotions that adults are feeling. And the way to buffer that with kids is by providing they can be brief, but a lot of positive interactions with the people who matter the most to them. That's critical for them at this time. So that's one of the best things that home visitors can do for families, and they're trained to do it. So this is families really do need that support right now, and kids really need that support.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about, so if you record the Piccolo virtually, is it recommended to review it over with the parent face to face once we return to like a normal setting environment?
Oh, the optimists among us who are already planning their future. Yes, that's one thing to do, but I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't wait at all. I mean, I would, if you can possibly even do it in the same home visit, I just play it back. Zoom will let you do that. And I just have a hint about Zoom: don't use dual monitors. Use just one screen, or else it gets very complicated. But just saying. Yeah, it's a perfect thing to do on a virtual home visit if they have a screen. If they don't have a screen on either a phone or a computer or whatever, they can't Zoom, they can't FaceTime, but they can have a phone call. You can play in bits of audio, and maybe it's a bit of audio when they're talking to the child. Maybe it's a bit of audio when they're describing what they're doing. And the home visitor says, when I listened to this again, I thought, well, here's why this is such a good thing. It's about this item on Piccolo, and it's related to this aspect of child development. So I think feedback should be as soon as possible, and I don't see us being able to provide as soon as possible feedback for a while. So we don't want to wait until we're all back making live home visits, because that's going to be a while.
You really do want to get the information back to the parent quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The child continues to develop during this time frame, and they are still growing and getting older, and we need to work with the parent, with the child, where the child is at right now developmentally. And in a month, they're going to be somewhere different developmentally.
Yeah.
And so really we have to kind of step in. The time is now, really. And you know, just to kind of tie it back into the research, you know, the research shows pretty clearly that facilitating the parent-child interaction is the thing that's going to lead to the best development in the family. And there's some newer research out about what keeps parents in programs longer. And really, it looks like more emphasis on parent-child interaction keeps the parents coming to your home visit longer, coming to your program longer.
And I think it makes the virtual home visits more valuable
More
for
powerful.
them and more powerful. Yeah, definitely.
Great, thank you. One logistic question that a lot of people are asking, I'm sorry that you're having some trouble downloading the handouts. We will add links to the follow-up email that goes out tomorrow to those handouts so you can download those. And we'll take just a couple more questions, and then if we don't get a chance to answer your question, we'll try to answer it offline.
Right.
Related to the home visit rating scale tool, are there any sections that are inappropriate to assess in virtual recordings or observations?
Well, the only thing that I can think of is that, I mean, this isn't unique to virtual home visits, but it's sometimes difficult for observers using the home visit rating scales to identify when a home visitor and family are talking about a sensitive topic. And one of the reasons it's difficult is because when we speak about sensitive topics well, they don't seem quite as sensitive. But nevertheless, I think that there may be things that are maybe wouldn't be good to record, conversations about potential for domestic violence or having problems managing strong emotions in conflict with a toddler, those kinds of things. Maybe we need families to feel safe enough that they know when they're not being recorded too. Maybe those kinds of conversations could move to a phone call that has more privacy protections. So that's the only thing that I could think about that you might not be seeing in a virtual setting. If you're looking at me right now, you know, you don't know who's lurking in the background, you know.
I do.
Mark does. He's just a couple feet away from me, but you know. So, yeah, I think we have to be a little bit extra cautious, but we would be anyway, you know. It's just that you don't know as much about the surrounding environment.
The only other thing you know, that it would need to take into account, if you're working with a coach and your coach is like viewing it with you, the people that are coaches and supervisors who are using the tool, you do need to think about this as a different format for delivering home visiting services. And you can take that into account as part of the process of coaching somebody on this. You know, we are really just kind of learning, you know, more and more information about visits when we're actually there. This is new terrain, really, in many ways. We've got a little people have used it in some virtual projects, but still, it's something the coach needs to take into account. Home virtual visits may look they may have differences from actual visits, and you know, we really don't know all that yet.
Right.
Great, thanks. Another question. When we have parents who have two children, should we video conference at 2 different times or try it at once with both children?
Well, you know, this is what I think about home visits anyway. I mean, the family has their reality, right? If you're home with a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, how are you going to have a home visit with just one of them? So I really think Piccolo and the home visit rating scales aside, I think we need to be supporting families as they are. And right now they may have school-age kids home and a baby and somebody in between. And, you know, we often are serving big families in these programs. And I think that we need to be helping families figure out how to have good interactions with all their kids. I mean, they're all there. And those older siblings are often good resources for developmental support in the family for the younger kids. And actually, when older kids get involved in helping younger kids learn, it's good for the older kids too. So I would just engage whoever wants to be engaged.
Those older kids are looking for something to do.
They are, and helping parents. I mean, we recommend that home visitors really work with parents to figure out what kinds of things do you enjoy with your kids, what kinds of things have you done before with your kids, what kinds of things, you know, help your kids like feel happier, what kinds of things help them settle down, kind of helping parents problem solve this whole situation in a way that is helping them remain parents to their children and protect them from some of the negative impacts that this could have.
Great, thank you. The woman who asked the question said this answer helps a lot. So that's great. We're hearing, getting some really good feedback. There's a comment from a home visitor who works with Spanish-speaking families. I think she said 14, and that she's getting, they're very open to doing it on FaceTime or WhatsApp. So that's great to hear.
Wonderful.
Yep, and lots of comments of people appreciative of all the information you're sharing.
Good.
Oh, thanks.
Let's see. So I'll just take, I think we'll just take one last question because we're kind of approaching past our time here. I don't want to go too late for everyone. Let's see. So, oh, some people are commenting that they send an activity for multiple age ranges so everyone in the family can participate.
Yeah, that's great. I would say almost every food preparation activity, which people are getting into now, is great as a multi-age learning activity to do in the home. So that's, and any household routines, obviously, but I'm a big fan of food prep for science and math, language, relationships, traditions, cultures.
All right, so we have one question we'll cover last about time. Is it okay if you only get 3 minutes of observing the parent-child interaction?
Yeah. Get what you can. Get what you can. Yeah.
More is better.
Five is sort of a minimum. If you're going to use the data, like this is data your program is using to track progress or whatever, that's one thing. But for getting some information, for doing some coaching, providing support, yeah, 3 minutes, 1 minute, whatever you can get.
Okay, great. And I have one interesting question. So I'm going to ask this last question. Due to some of the questions regarding mom's reaction, do you feel that some of the scores may be lower because of other family members in the home during this time?
Well, you know, it could create stress and distraction, and yeah, they could be lower. I would say that it would be good for at the program level, if you are using these measures to track progress in either home visiting quality or in parent-child interaction, it might be a good idea to just mark these observations as during this different time. This is the pandemic time. So maybe they will be different, and maybe we can take that into account, but we don't even know if they'll be different. You know,
right.
So we don't know yet. Yeah. So, but take it with a grain of salt. If you're not seeing gains that you thought you would see in PICCOLO scores, you know, let's not worry about it too much.
You know, and from a home visitor perspective, you know, if you see different interaction styles from what you've seen when not everybody's there, it's at some point that's something for you to talk about. Kind of get at what's driving that a little bit.
How are things changing for your family?
For your family, and so it's something you want to be familiar with. You want to understand. It'll help make your home visits better.
It's going to help all the communication skills that home visitors have been learning over the years about asking reflective questions and using motivational interviewing strategies, being really good listeners. Those are all really critically important now. And I think that in some ways we have an opportunity to expand the skill sets that are especially important for providing services to families at this time and from a distance. And one of those is being able to work with parents where we keep the parent in the parenting role and support them and guide them and help them feel more confident about what they're able to do with their children to support their development. And I think that's really critical right now.
Great. Thank you so much for being willing to present this webinar and join us. I know this is a busy, uncertain time, so we really appreciate it, and our listeners, I think, really appreciated it based on all the comments. Everyone who's listening, you'll receive an email tomorrow. It'll have a link to a certificate. It'll have a link to the recording. You're welcome to share that recording with your colleagues who maybe couldn't join us. And also put links in there to the handouts that we had some trouble downloading those. And please feel free to reach out with any questions. And if we didn't answer your question, I'll send those to Lori and Mark offline, and we'll try to get as many of those answered as we can. So thank you very much, everyone. Stay healthy and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Good health to all of you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Attendees are